All right. So I suppose the point where I should start asking questions then.
if you like.
So, so by the way, this is all Paul's fault. He told me to call in yesterday when I commented on his video. So here I am calling in.
Oh, excellent.
Um, so I am, as I've described to many people, I'm a never theist. Like I've never been atheist in any way, shape, or form. Like I've done a lot of research, like trying to see if I wanted to find faith, but nothing ever grabbed me. But when I look online and see a lot of these personalities, it does seem like a majority of them are deconverted theists who seem to be some of the strongest voices kind of promoting against theism as a whole. And I was curious if you guys had any thoughts and like as to why that in general tends to be.
Go ahead,
I'll
John.
let you go first this time, Paul.
All right. So I think that that tends to be the case. And so ascribing motive, even for an individual, I'm kind of generally against because it's very tough to tell an individual's motives. It's even
Mhm.
worse to ascribe motives to groups. That said, among the people who I know who are former theists who were kind of outspoken about it, theism tends to affect theists more. So, for example, most of the people who I love are currently theists, right? They are.
Mhm.
So my community, my family, my friends are there, and because I came through it, and in my view, I learned that everything I was taught was incorrect or a lie or however strongly you want to put it. It's very visceral to me. I am not that many years out, and I still wake up sometimes quite angry at the situations. Most of the time, I'm angry at myself for being that gullible. I'm angry at people who, not everyone, but there were people in my life who should have known better, who deliberately misled me on certain things. So again, it is something that was personally affecting is gonna just carry more passion in my life than, for example, there are lots of causes I would support, but they haven't directly affected my life, and so just my passion for that in terms of thinking about it on a day-to-day basis is gonna be lower. And so I often envy people who had no theism in their life because it's not something they have to think about, and they never wake up, remembering what it was like to be afraid of hell or just all those things. It's just I think anytime a cause is personally affecting, like for example, if you have a loved one who is stricken with a particular illness, be it cancer, or I'm doing an MS fundraiser tomorrow night on my channel because my partner has MS, and now was I supportive of MS research before my partner? Absolutely, I was, but now it's a personal thing that's happening in my life. So I think that's just human nature is that we identify with causes that affect us. I don't know. That's a general thought. John, do you have others?
I mean, yeah, definitely echoing what Paul said here. But as far as like, why is it so many have deconverted? I feel like there's just a lot of experiences that makes it a little bit difficult to really connect with if you haven't been religious.
Mhm.
Just like the experience of growing up and thinking this one way about you know just reality in general, and then you come to find out like, oh well, for me, I'm speaking personally here, just like I've always assumed these things, and now it's like, oh well, why do I believe this? And so that like radically changed my view about stuff, because it's like before that I would just accept things that I was told was true by people that I trusted and everything. And it's not that I thought that they were lying to me or anything like that, but I just sort of, slapped myself on the wrist like, why did you just immediately believe that? Why didn't you actually investigate it for yourself? And so like that was a major change in my own way of doing things. So it's kind of like I start to apply that in other situations as well. And I feel like unless like if you've grown up, you know, not having that experience, I guess you wouldn't necessarily have such a deep emotional tie to revealing that to other people, you know? I feel like it
Mhm.
can be said to be somewhat similar for religious people that become born again because it's like, they weren't really true believers before, but then they become born again and they are just, so
Yeah.
emotionally connected to that experience. They want to spread that to other people. And I'm not trying to make it sound like a religious experience, like deconverting religion, but I mean, I feel like it's very much the emotional attachment, to that experience that kind of invigorates people to like, talk about it. And I have to admit, before I left religion, I did not care about religion. Like one bit, like growing up, like I always assumed God existed and everything like that. And it was just sort of like a throwaway thing. Like, oh yeah, I'm Christian.
Mhm.
I go to church sometimes and everything. And then after I left religion, I realized how many people were making decisions based on these ideas that are just crazy. And so, like, it didn't, strike me before as being crazy, but now after leaving religion and realizing, like, how wrong I was about stuff, that made me want to, like, voice my opinion. And so how I kinda got into it was I was voicing my opinion, and then I started getting ostracized by my family. And so I wanted a different venue to voice it because I was still trying to be respectful to them. I still respect family members today about this particular topic. We just have an understanding that they just don't talk to me about it because that's going to make them angry. Like I'm not going to get angry, but they definitely. And so we had that understanding. But at the time, I wanted a different
Mhm.
venue to sort of let those ideas sort of ferment and allow me to come into my own and examine this new world view that I had adopted. And so that's why I started a page, and now my page is like 130,000 over there on Facebook, which doesn't really mean anything. But and it's also why I
Get a
started
couple
doing
fans.
like YouTube content and everything. Huh,
Did you get a couple fans?
yeah, a couple. There's a few on there.
A couple
Um,
people that hate him. So that means he's doing it right.
Ah.
yeah, exactly. But more than a couple people that hate me. I think this week I got Eric Manning to dislike me. And I don't know. He probably has a sour opinion about me because I called him a homophobic
Mm.
misogynist. But, when you out yourself, you out yourself. But in any case, I don't know if that answered
Yeah.
your question though.
Actually, you guys gave me
I'm a
some very
cautionary tale. That's
interesting
what it is.
stuff. The I get into debates with people on a regular basis just because I enjoy debating people, and I'm rude like that. And one of the things that always comes up is most atheists are just angry at God. And I don't have the perspective of someone who's been a believer and not. So I can't give that kind of a response other than, well, as far as I can tell, it was important in their lives. And then they found out that it wasn't real. So they want to speak out. You guys have given me a little bit more color that might be able to sprinkle in there,
Yeah.
if that makes
That's
sense. So
great.
thank
Yeah,
you for that.
that's I think your answer was obviously a good one because I think that was a more concise way of saying what we rambled about a bit. But I mean, we can we hate there was some characters like I hated Ramsay on Game of Thrones. Who was that his name? There's fictional characters we hate, right? Like you can hate Darth Vader, you can hate Thanos, you can hate
Yeah.
villains and things. You can or, you there's you can disapprove of the reported actions of someone that doesn't exist.
Yeah, you
That's
can have an
and still separate.
emotional connection with a fictional character,
Right,
whether it's
exactly.
that love or hate.
And especially if, as John said there, that a lot of people are making decisions based on what they think that character is doing, right? Like if
Oh, yeah.
we're in this world where, hey, we're all acknowledging it's fiction, but we're basing our lives based on the Wizard of Oz, and we got a group of people that base their lives on the Cowardly Lion, and a group of people based on the Scarecrow, and we're all here like, hey, maybe none of those characters existed, but we don't think. But Dorothy might be better than some of the others. I guess if you have to pick one, you're okay with Dorothy. So it's this weird.
Yeah, I'm
That
definitely
And
you
feeling the
hate.
decision thing because I've never gotten that across to anybody. It's like the decisions, the important decisions someone's making are based off the religion.
Yeah,
Like that's one of the big things I'm going to steal from this. Yoink.
perfect.
yeah,
And I do have a second question if you guys don't have like a theist waiting.
we don't. So feel free.
Okay. What do you guys think of the value of attempting to debate with a true believer? And I don't just mean like in an online space, I understand that there's other people can learn from that and see the debate and how things go. I'm not talking necessarily on the grand scale of, oh, you shouldn't debate this person because all you're doing is giving them attention or this, that, or the other. But if you get into a debate with someone in real life, just
Mhm.
that you happen to run into, I don't know, in the grocery store or whatever, I'm exceedingly social. So I get into these weird situations. So, like, what do you guys think would be the value in that? Like, is there that valuable or is that something that, like, the moment you go, this person is a true believer, like, just kind of walk away or something along those lines?
Well, so for me, I guess it kind of depends on what mood I'm in. Because I mean, I like debates too. If I'm in the mood for a debate, I don't ever expect to change the person's mind in that debate. I
Hmm.
just what I typically try to focus on. This is something I mentioned to the last caller is trying to be that voice of reason out there.
Hmm.
So I think that every conversation's it's valuable to push back and to say some things like in response to whatever their arguments are or whatnot. But I would I would focus on just the fact that you are like espousing this opposite opinion and they are being exposed to that opposite opinion because it I know for me but before I left religion, um I wasn't exposed to that. Like I was never exposed to
Hmm.
somebody actually making the argument, to not believe in God or explain why they don't believe. It was always kind of just sort of out there that like, oh, everybody's a Christian or everybody believes in God of some kind. So like it really never clicked to me that there were people that, didn't believe in God. Or if they ever came up, they were always, presented as these horrible godless pagan people or whatever. And so, it was a very weird sort of, I guess, perception that I had of people that didn't believe in God. And it wasn't until I had somebody, that didn't believe in God in my life that was close to me at the time that sort of, was like, well, why? Why believe in that? Like that seems ridiculous. Why do you believe in that? And so that's what caused me to start reevaluating things. And I just feel like anybody that you get into a conversation with, the best thing that can happen is that they will be influenced and start to reconsider what they believe, why they believe it. And not necessarily that they'll just automatically believe you, but just that they'll start considering alternatives. Like that's the best that you can hope for. And I guess the worst is that, they could get mad and never talk to you again or something like that, which that can be bad. But hopefully you don't get into a position where you're like screaming at each other, which I have, like, n and not to a fault of my own, like, I remember coworkers that screamed at me because they were talking about, gay Boy Scout leaders and had ended up in a screaming match, and I just had to go back to my desk and, you know, act like act like it didn't happen, but, yeah, I think that there's good to come out of it, even if you don't change their mind, at least that the point is that they're getting exposed to alternative ideas.
Yeah,
All right.
there's a normalizing factor that I think that's what, that that's just the more normal. So one of the things that's happened that's been great with the LGBTQ movement over the last 40 years is sort of this normalization effect, right? As more and more of us get to know people who are out and talking about these things, then you kind of, even if you're not a part of the community yourself, you actually kind of realize that it's a normal thing. And so for some people like me, when I deconverted, I didn't know anyone that was openly not a believer, right? So just the things, while it is completely your right to go ahead and pick a fight with anyone you want in a grocery store about, what they believe, so, and so I don't want to discourage, like, if that's what you want to do and you want to dunk on a theist or whatever, cool. But in terms of, I would hope, me personally, my wish would be that you would be leaving that person with feeling like, oh, that person isn't as evil as I thought they were. That's, they're at least better than my stereotype of a non-believer. And
Mhm.
even better yet, that you've left them with a pebble in their shoe type question, that they're like, oh, why am I so confident about whatever this thing was? So, there's a whole line of like street epistemology, rhetorical question style questioning that is that is easy to pick up on and do in a quick period of time. As I think I'm just building on what John was saying there, is you ask them, well, why do you believe? What do you believe? And then you say, well, why did you believe that? And why do you believe that? And if it ultimately comes down to just faith, you can say, oh, well, I don't really think that faith is a great way because so the Muslims also believe on faith, and so do the Buddhists. Like it seems like everyone can
Hmm.
justify any claim on faith. There's some of those. So it depends on what your goal is. I guess is the question. But I do think there is the good can come of it. I think John and I are both evidence that people who did believe can be reasoned out of it. I don't like the slogan that you can't reason someone out of something they weren't reasoned into in the first place. I don't
Yeah.
like that slogan because I'm in. If that was the case, I would still be in my religion, and I'm better off without it. So I take that for what it's worth.
All right. Well, thank you. And first off, as a pansexual myself, like thanks for the acceptance of LGBTQ plus. And I totally stumbled over that. And yeah, more good words. I mean, that's an argument that's been going around since, I don't know, I was a late 90s goth sitting in coffee shops overnight, arguing with anybody I could find over anything. And the whole
Mm,
true believer thing just comes up. And it's always like, well, why bother? Like, because it's a viewpoint they might not have heard before.
right.
And that's why I say I'm a
Absolutely.
jerk about it. Because yes, technically, am I forcing my views that the views exist on someone? Yeah, but not necessarily like I'm saying they have to believe it. But yeah. Well, that's all I have for
Awesome.
you guys. Thank you very much.
All
And
right.
thanks
Thanks,
for
Drew.
prodding me to call Paul.
No worries.
And
Talk again.
I'll do my best to pull my best foot forward and trying to be an example of the community like, Paul and Drew, genetically modified skeptic and Godless engineer. You're an entertaining person in general. Anyway, thank you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
No problem. Have a
Thanks,
good one.
man. All right.
Bye.
Bye.